What if I told you that most sniper movies are tactical fantasy? But the only 11 sniper movies actual Marine Scout snipers respect are a completely different story. Not because they're louder, not because they're flashier, but because they understand something Hollywood usually ignores: patience, discipline, and the mental grind behind the trigger. This isn't about hero worship, it's about separating what looks cinematic from what actually works in the field. Let's start with the controversial one, because Shooter walks a thin line between grounded detail and Hollywood escalation. Marine Scout snipers don't watch this movie for the conspiracy storyline, they watch it for the moments when the film slows down and actually respects the mechanics. The early mountain sequence isn't rushed. The hide position is deliberate. The rifle isn't treated like a magic wand. You see setup, you see preparation, you see wind considerations. And that matters. The film spends time showing range estimation, breathing control, and trigger discipline. It doesn't treat a long-distance shot like a casual flick of the wrist. The ballistic dialogue, while dramatized, at least acknowledges that physics exists. That's more than most sniper films bother to do. Now here's where Marines start nodding cautiously. The ghillie suit use isn't purely cosmetic. The concealment effort feels intentional. The character doesn't stand tall on skylines for dramatic silhouette shots. He understands elevation and background contrast. There's an awareness of counter-sniper threat, which is critical in real-world engagements. But, and this is important, the second half of the film drifts into superhero territory. Shots get cleaner, reactions get faster, enemies get conveniently exposed. Real-world snipers will tell you that once bullets start flying unpredictably, control disappears quickly. You don't dominate chaos. You survive it. Still, there's a reason this film makes the list. It respects the mindset. The protagonist doesn't treat shooting like a thrill ride. There's weight behind every trigger press. There's calculation before commitment. And even when the story becomes cinematic, the foundation feels built on research instead of pure imagination. Marines don't respect it because it's perfect. They respect it because underneath the Hollywood gloss, it understands that sniping isn't about ego. It's about discipline, preparation, and thinking 3 steps ahead. And that foundation earns it a spot here. This isn't a sniper movie, and that's exactly why the sniper scene works. The Hurt Locker focuses primarily on explosive ordnance disposal, but there's one extended long-range engagement sequence that Marine Scout snipers consistently reference when talking about realism. Not because it's flashy, because it's exhausting. The scene stretches time. There's no dramatic soundtrack swelling. There's no slow-motion glory shot. Instead, you get dehydration. You get dust in optics. You get wind that refuses to cooperate. You get bodies locked into prone positions for far longer than comfort allows. That's real. The engagement isn't a quick exchange of perfectly timed shots. It's a grinding stalemate. Ranging takes time. Communication is clipped and controlled. Every adjustment is deliberate. Every round matters. And when equipment begins to fail, when optics become compromised, the tension shifts from cinematic to uncomfortable. Marines respect that discomfort. Field conditions aren't sterile. Gear overheats. Visibility shifts. The environment doesn't care about your timing. Another detail that stands out? The physical fatigue. Holding a rifle steady in desert heat while calculating distance is draining. Muscles tremble. Focus narrows. The film doesn't hide that strain. It leans into it. That subtle realism resonates far more than any exaggerated headshot montage ever could. There's also restraint in how targets are treated. No villain speeches, no exaggerated taunts. Just distant figures who may or may not be threats. The ambiguity forces calculation instead of impulse. That's a mental exercise Marines understand deeply. What the film avoids is just as important as what it shows. No rooftop posing, no exposed skyline hero shots, no impossible reflex counter-sniping from open windows. The characters stay low. They minimize profile. They prioritize survival over spectacle. It's not perfect, but it respects tempo. It respects environmental friction. And most importantly, it shows that sniper engagements are rarely cinematic duels. They're drawn-out tests of endurance and patience. That's why it makes the list. If you ask Marines whether this film is perfectly realistic, most will say no. If you ask whether it understands the psychology of a sniper duel, the answer changes. La Enemy at the Gates dramatizes the battle between Soviet sniper Vasily Zaitsev and his German counterpart in Stalingrad. It's stylized, it's cinematic, it leans heavily into myth, but beneath the war movie spectacle it captures something important: patience as a weapon. The film doesn't rush its confrontations. It lingers. It forces stillness. There are extended stretches where nothing moves except dust in the air and subtle shifts in breathing. That kind of pacing is rare in war films, and Marines recognize the authenticity in that silence. Sniping isn't about rapid domination. It's about waiting longer than the other person can tolerate. One of the most respected elements is concealment discipline. Characters disappear into rubble. They use terrain intelligently. They blend into broken masonry and shadow instead of standing exposed for heroic framing. The urban environment becomes a chessboard rather than a backdrop. The duel sequences are about observation first, trigger second. There's constant scanning, micro-adjustments, calculated repositioning. Both sides attempt to predict each other's next move without giving away their own. That psychological layering feels believable, even if the historical rivalry is embellished. Where it strays into Hollywood territory is in the myth-building. The idea of a sniper as a national symbol is amplified for dramatic effect. Real Marine Scout snipers aren't paraded as icons mid-conflict. Their work is quiet and often anonymous. The film romanticizes that aspect heavily. Still, it respects the technical fundamentals. Rifles aren't fired casually. Shots are deliberate. Misses carry consequences. The fear of counter-sniper detection is present throughout the duel. Nobody lingers carelessly after firing. Repositioning is constant because survival demands it. Another point Marines often acknowledge is the emotional restraint during engagement. The characters aren't screaming victory after a successful shot. There's tension, not celebration. That tone aligns more closely with reality than exaggerated action sequences would. Even the use of spotters and coordinated positioning adds a layer of credibility. Sniping is rarely a solo act in structured military operations. The film shows teamwork, communication, and mutual reliance in critical moments. Is it dramatized? Absolutely. But does it understand that sniping is a mental contest before it's a physical one? Yes. That psychological emphasis earns it respect. This one doesn't get talked about enough in sniper discussions, and that's exactly why it works. The jungle sniper ambush sequence in Clear and Present Danger is one of the most tactically disciplined depictions of a coordinated marksman attack in a mainstream film. It's not flashy, it's not theatrical, it's sudden, controlled, and brutal. The shooters don't announce themselves. They don't skyline for dramatic framing. They don't fire endlessly. They strike with precision and disappear into concealment almost immediately. That detail alone earns respect. The engagement reflects real-world principles: elevated concealed positioning, overlapping fields of fire, rapid displacement after contact, no emotional theatrics during execution. The ambush feels cold and calculated. There's no heroic buildup, no slow-motion breath shots, just disciplined coordination and immediate dominance through surprise. Another key detail Marines respect: the attackers use terrain intelligently. They exploit vegetation, elevation, and line-of-sight advantage without exposing unnecessary movement. The targets are overwhelmed not because of magic accuracy, but because of preparation. And that's the core of sniper doctrine. Preparation beats bravado. The film also avoids over-glorification. The snipers aren't mythic lone wolves. They're part of a coordinated plan. Professional, quiet, efficient. Is the entire movie about sniping? No. But the sniper sequence itself is one of the most tactically grounded ambush portrayals in 90s action cinema. This isn't a sniper-centric story, it's urban chaos, and that's exactly why the sniper moments stand out. Black Hawk Down earns respect because it understands Overwatch responsibility inside a collapsing environment. The rooftop sequences are not glamorous. They're urgent, pressured, and tactically restrained. The Delta Force snipers aren't posing for cinematic glory. They're scanning angles, covering corridors, and prioritizing teammates over theatrics. There's no unnecessary exposure. When they take position, they stay tight to cover. They don't lean fully into windows for dramatic framing. They minimize profile. They adjust quickly after firing. Those small details matter. Real Marine Scout snipers are trained to assume counterfire instantly. The film reflects that awareness. Another strong point is communication. Shots aren't fired in isolation. There's coordination. There's acknowledgement of fields of fire. There's constant awareness of friendly movement. Urban environments are unpredictable and claustrophobic. The movie shows that unpredictability rather than simplifying it. The rooftop defense scenes are especially respected. The decision by the two snipers to hold ground and protect a crash site isn't portrayed as heroic spectacle. It's shown as a calculated, sacrificial choice rooted in duty. They don't stand tall in open skylines. They stay disciplined, moving only when necessary. There's also a realism in the volume of chaos. Rounds are coming from everywhere. Dust clouds obscure visibility. It's not a neat duel. It's sensory overload. Snipers are not superhuman figures dominating the battlefield. They're professionals managing limited visibility and rapidly shifting threats. What the film avoids is important. No dramatic zoom-ins with exaggerated breathing audio. No impossible trick shots under impossible pressure. Instead, you get deliberate firing and immediate repositioning when needed. Marines respect that the film shows snipers as part of a team structure, not lone wolves operating in isolation. Their role is support, stabilization, and damage control in a collapsing operation. The realism isn't perfect, but the discipline feels authentic. That's enough to earn its place. The sniper in Full Metal Jacket isn't mythologized. There's no triumphant theme music. There's only tension. The final act of the film presents one of the most unsettling urban sniper engagements ever put on screen. A single concealed shooter halts an entire squad's advance. That alone resonates with Marines because it highlights a harsh truth. One disciplined sniper can immobilize superior numbers. The urban sprawl becomes a trap. The environment is fragmented. Rubble, shadows, half-destroyed structures. Visibility is compromised constantly. The squad doesn't immediately locate the shooter, and that delay creates fear. That fear feels real. No one is casually sprinting upright without consequence. Movement is cautious. Mistakes are punished quickly. The sniper doesn't reveal position carelessly. Shots are measured. Each trigger pull shifts momentum. That portrayal of patience and concealment reflects how dangerous an unseen marksman can be. What stands out most is psychological disruption. The squad becomes unsettled. Communication fractures, confidence dips. The sniper's presence is oppressive rather than flashy. Marines understand that psychological pressure can be just as effective as physical elimination. There's no glorified duel, there's confusion, frustration, and gradual realization of vulnerability. The sniper doesn't taunt dramatically. The tension comes from silence and uncertainty. Another detail worth noting is the realism of hesitation. Characters debate movement. They reassess positioning. They don't rush blindly without consequence. That hesitation mirrors real urban clearing dynamics where every exposed step can be final. When the shooter is finally located, it's not through cinematic miracle. It's through incremental progress and risk. The encounter isn't triumphant. It's uncomfortable. Full Metal Jacket respects the impact of concealment. It shows how fragile control becomes when visibility is lost. That grounded portrayal of urban vulnerability earns it respect among Marines. This is a sniper duel stripped of spectacle. Two soldiers pinned behind minimal cover in open desert terrain. No orchestral swell, no rapid-fire heroics. Just isolation. The wall earns respect because it focuses almost entirely on psychological warfare. The Iraqi sniper in the film doesn't fire constantly. He controls tempo. He manipulates fear. He forces exposure through patience. That strategic pacing feels authentic. The American soldier pinned behind a crumbling barrier understands that any unnecessary movement could be fatal. He doesn't stand tall to trade dramatic shots. He inches. He calculates. He measures distance cautiously. There's an awareness of terrain limitations. Desert environments offer minimal concealment. Heat distortion affects optics. Sound carries unpredictably. The film leans into those environmental challenges instead of ignoring them. Communication becomes a weapon. The unseen sniper uses radio interception and manipulation to destabilize his opponent. Psychological strain replaces visual action. Marines recognize that mental erosion can break discipline faster than bullets. Another strength is restraint in marksmanship. Shots are spaced, misses matter. Each engagement reveals position incrementally, and no one is firing endlessly without consequence. Ammunition and exposure are treated as finite risks. The physical strain is also emphasized. Remaining pinned for extended periods dehydrates and exhausts the body. The film portrays that wear realistically. Muscles fatigue. Decision-making slows. Focus narrows dangerously. What makes The Wall different is its refusal to glamorize the duel. There are no rooftop silhouettes against sunsets, no dramatic slow-motion reloads, just tension and incremental pressure. It portrays sniping as a mental endurance contest. That emphasis on psychological dominance over flashy marksmanship is precisely why Marine Scout snipers often mention it as one of the more grounded modern depictions. This is where the conversation usually gets heated. Because American Sniper is widely known, widely debated, and widely politicized. Strip all that away, though, and focus strictly on tactical portrayal. And there's a reason Marine Scout snipers give certain parts of this film real credit. The rooftop Overwatch scenes are handled with restraint. You don't see reckless exposure. You don't see dramatic skyline posing. The rifle is anchored. The shooter stays tight to cover. There's a clear understanding that urban Overwatch is about minimizing silhouette and controlling angles, not flexing for the camera. Target identification is treated seriously. The film doesn't portray shots as casual reactions. There's hesitation. There's assessment. There's internal conflict before engagement. Marines respect that pause. Pulling a trigger in an Overwatch scenario isn't mechanical. It's calculated and irreversible. Another detail that lands well is environmental interference. Wind kicks up unpredictably. Sand reduces visibility. Long-range engagements aren't crystal clear through pristine optics. You see adjustments being made rather than magical accuracy. The sandstorm sequence in particular doesn't glamorize visibility. It shows how quickly situational awareness can collapse. The pacing also reflects deployment rhythm. There are long stretches of scanning without firing. Overwatch isn't constant action, it's repetition. It's hours of observation punctuated by seconds of decision. The film allows that stillness to exist instead of filling every moment with noise. There's also an understanding of counter-sniper threat. Once a shot is taken, a relocation becomes immediate priority. The movie doesn't treat firing as a victory moment. It treats it as exposure. That mindset aligns with real-world doctrine. Survival after engagement is just as critical as the shot itself. Now it's not flawless. Certain sequences heighten drama beyond realistic thresholds. Reaction times occasionally stretch credibility. Some long-distance exchanges feel cleaner than they likely would under real conditions. But here's the key difference. The film respects weight. There's gravity behind each decision. The shooter isn't smiling after clean hits. There's no celebratory bravado. Instead, there's tension and consequence. Marine Scout snipers don't respect this film because it's patriotic. They respect it because in its strongest moments, it understands that sniping is not cinematic domination. It's responsibility under pressure, and that nuance earns its place near the top. because Jarhead barely shows a sniper firing in combat, and that's exactly why Marines respect it. The film captures something most sniper movies completely ignore: the waiting, the endless anticipation, the psychological strain of preparing for a shot that may never come. Sniper training sequences in the film are grounded. You see repetition, you see mentorship, you see correction of posture, breathing, and trigger control. It's not flashy, it's instructional. That educational tone feels far more authentic than exaggerated battlefield heroics. But the real strength lies in frustration. The Gulf War setting presents a reality where trained snipers are deployed, prepared, and ready, yet denied engagement opportunities. That denial is realistic. Many deployments involve far more observation than action. The boredom becomes oppressive. The film doesn't hide that boredom. There's restlessness. There's mental fatigue. There's an identity crisis brewing beneath the surface. When you train for precision and never get to execute it, tension builds internally. Marine Scout snipers understand that discipline isn't tested only during gunfire, it's tested during stillness. Another respected detail is the bond between sniper and spotter. The relationship is not theatrical. It's quiet. It's built on trust and shared monotony. Communication is subtle and direct. There's no dramatic shouting or exaggerated battlefield theatrics. And even the denied long-range shot scene, where the sniper team is prepared but ordered to stand down, carries weight. The camera doesn't frame it as heroic tragedy. It frames it as operational reality. Rules of engagement matter. Command decisions override personal readiness. That realism resonates deeply. Jarhead doesn't glamorize marksmanship. It humanizes the grind behind it. There are no impossible trick shots, no rooftop duels, no dramatic counter-sniper exchanges. Instead, there's dust, heat, waiting, and unresolved tension. For Marines, that portrayal feels honest, because sometimes the most accurate sniper movie is the one where the trigger is never pulled. This is where the list stops being debated and starts being respected. Saving Private Ryan is not about snipers specifically, but Barry Pepper's portrayal of Private Jackson is one of the most quietly admired sniper performances ever filmed. Not because it's loud, because it's disciplined. The church tower sequences are handled with restraint. Jackson doesn't posture. He doesn't grandstand. He climbs with purpose, settles into position carefully, and stabilizes before firing. There's no exaggerated breathing soundtrack, just controlled motion and measured execution. The rifle handling feels deliberate. Every shot is set up with patience. He adjusts position instead of firing impulsively. He accounts for distance rather than relying on cinematic instinct. The film doesn't treat marksmanship as mystical talent. It treats it as trained precision. Another detail Marines respect is composure under chaos. While the battlefield erupts below him, Jackson remains steady. He doesn't rush follow-up shots. He doesn't celebrate hits. He maintains discipline even as the environment destabilizes. There's also an understanding of Overwatch role. He's not wandering independently. He's supporting movement. He's covering advances. He's eliminating threats to protect the squad. That team-oriented focus reflects how snipers actually function inside larger operations. The pacing matters too. The film allows time between shots. It doesn't cut rapidly for adrenaline effect. That breathing room creates realism. Long-range engagement isn't frantic, it's focused. Even when he fires at extreme distances, the shots don't feel like magic. They feel earned. The camera lingers on setup more than on impact. That subtlety reinforces credibility. What makes this portrayal stand out is seriousness. Jackson approaches the rifle with reverence. There's ritual in his preparation. That quiet ritual isn't glorification, it's mindset. Marines recognize that mental centering before engagement. The film doesn't overcomplicate the sniper role. It presents it plainly. Controlled, integrated, professional, that simplicity is powerful. Saving Private Ryan earns its place near the top because it respects the craft without exaggerating it. And that balance is rare. This is the one Marine Scout snipers mention most consistently, not because it's perfect, but because it understands the job. Sniper starring Tom Berenger doesn't rush its stalking sequences. It doesn't treat concealment as cosmetic. The jungle isn't a backdrop. It's a threat and a shield simultaneously. Movement is slow, painfully slow. And that's accurate. The film shows hours of observation compressed into scenes that still feel methodical. There's discomfort, sweat, insects, environmental pressure. It doesn't romanticize field conditions, it emphasizes them. The relationship between the experienced sniper and his less seasoned partner is another reason Marines respect it. Mentorship matters deeply within Scout sniper culture. The passing of discipline, patience, and mental resilience isn't dramatized. It's instructional. You see corrections. You see restraint being taught. You see the cost of impatience. The rifle isn't treated like a prop. It's treated like a responsibility. Shots are not fired casually. Each trigger pull has strategic consequence. Misses are not shrugged off. Positioning before engagement is emphasized heavily. The concealment discipline stands out most. They don't skyline themselves for dramatic silhouettes. They blend, they burrow, they disappear into terrain. That authenticity separates it from many modern films that prioritize aesthetics over survivability. There's also respect for counter-sniper threat. After firing, repositioning is immediate. Exposure is acknowledged as vulnerability. No one lingers for applause. That realism reflects actual training doctrine. Another strength is tone. The film doesn't inflate the sniper into a mythic superhero. It portrays him as a professional operating in isolation, carrying psychological weight. There's seriousness in every movement. It avoids flashy trick shots. It avoids exaggerated reflex heroics. Instead, it leans into patience, endurance, and quiet lethality. Marine Scout snipers respect this film because it captures the rhythm of the craft. Observe, calculate, wait, then act once. And that's it. No spectacle, just discipline. That's why it sits at #1 on the only 11 sniper movies actual Marine Scout snipers respect. Most sniper movies chase spectacle. These 11 earned respect the hard way, through patience, positioning, and psychological discipline. Real Marine Scout snipers don't care about dramatic slow motion or miracle shots. They care about concealment, restraint, and surviving after the trigger breaks. If you want Hollywood fantasy, there's plenty. But if you want realism, start with these.